Despite losing to the Washington Capitals 4-1 to seeing their losing streak snapped, there are still some positives to take away from the Carolina Hurricanes. Point streak stayed alive, guys sticking up for each other, and the Hurricanes are still a good spot at 11-5. What else stood out? What else can we take away from this game? We'll talk about it here on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and now the #1 sports podcasting network. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers, also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. On the Wednesday show of the pod, we're going to talk about some of the takeaways from the Hurricanes' 4-1 loss against the Washington Capitals. While it was not the greatest of games that the Hurricanes have played this year, there's still at least something to take away from it that I think will be a bigger impact long-term for the season. Also talking about for the fact that the Hurricanes have been going through a lot with just the injuries, guys coming in and out of the blue line, and the fact they've played 4 games in 6 days, and it's not going to slow down for them there. And then we also get to hear from Logan Stankoven post-game following the loss to the Capitals. But before we jump into all that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Now, for the Carolina Hurricanes, it was definitely, you can tell this is one of those games where fatigue kind of, I think, kicked in for the Hurricanes, because we'll talk a little bit more in segment 2, but you're talking 4 games in 6 days. You know, you got guys coming in and out of the lineup. You got Shane Gostisbehere back. You just lost Charles Alexis-Legault. There's some pairings that, you thought could work that maybe are a little bit rusty, and guys are still trying to figure it out. And it was just one of those things where the synergy or the chemistry wasn't really where it was over the last few games. The fact that, like I said, you're getting guys back in the lineup, guys who worked really well together weren't paired with each other. So it's kind of like trying to figure out how to get, everyone to move it and groove. And in the game itself, when you look at it, you're talking about, the Hurricanes getting outshot 10-7 in the first period, shots 10-10 in the third. The Hurricanes actually had 14-8. They won the faceoffs. Unfortunately, special teams battle. The power play went 0 for 5. PK did go 4 for 5, though, but unfortunately, the one power play goal they did give up, it kind of put this at a 3-1 disadvantage for the Hurricanes, where Washington had the lead, and then it's just kind of one of those things where they really needed to, find something, and unfortunately just didn't work out. It's a game where you kind of wished that it didn't take maybe 15 minutes of the first period for them to react or do something, because it seemed like Washington, who did have a couple days break in between their last game and the one against the Hurricanes, facing a Hurricanes team that just came off a back-to-back, already played 3 games in 4 days. This was their 4th and 6th. So I think it kind of took advantage of it. It was a little bit of advantage on a team who maybe wasn't as rested, but of course, welcome to the National Hockey League. No one's going to feel bad for you, and you have to roll with the punches. And that's kind of what it is too for the Hurricanes. Like, yeah, it stinks that how many games you got to play with the condensed schedule, but you got to go win games. And unfortunately, this is just one where it was a slow start for the Canes. They tried to claw their back way into it, and it just kind of fell short. It is what it is. And like I said, you can't have 5 power plays and not score on any one of them. And now you're second to last on the power play once again in the National Hockey League after getting up to 29th. Now you're back to the bottom once again. And at least the PK is doing their job. Yeah, they let up 1, but on that, that power play goal, it just kind of, fell into the lap of Washington where they paid off on, and that's what it was. But the thing that I think was the big takeaway from this game was you look at teams of the past for the Hurricanes, and some things that always came up were, this team doesn't stick up for each other a lot, or if they do, it has to be something monumental, or they get pushed around a lot, especially in the playoffs. But I feel like with this Hurricanes team this year, and we've seen it with Charles Alex Legault. We've seen it with Jordan Stahl. Now we've seen it with Logan Stankoven is they will stick up for their teammates no matter how big of a hit it was, or it's like, hey, you're not going to do that to our guy. And in this game, you see Freddie Anderson get hit from Nick Dowd. Nick Dowd can act like, well, I was trying to stop him from passing the puck, but you didn't really have to go shoulder into the goalie and knocking him down. And Sean Walker was initially, giving it to Nick Dowd. Freddie comes over and then it turns into a whole, brouhaha, a whole waiata, and guys grabbing each other. And then, then you see Martin Ferravari, grab Jackson Blake and try to start ragdolling him. And Logan Stankoven, all of, 5'6", 5'7" of them goes over, and 5'8", and goes over and starts giving Martin Ferravari the business. And Ferravari's got a good almost half a foot on him, but Stankoven stood his own, made him eat some punches, and they did fall down kind of together, but you kind of get the sense that Stankoven won the fight, and he did get cut on his right eye, but that's after he fell down to the ice. It wasn't by a punch, but that's the type of thing that I think is going to it's letting teams know that you're not going to go and bully the Hurricanes around. You're not going to try and just be like, okay, we're just going to keep throwing hits and you guys are going to react. The Hurricanes this season have reacted. Jordan Stahl went after Tyler Pitlick after he took out Jalen Chatfield. You see Logan Stankoven going after, Martin Ferravari after he goes after Jackson Blake, one of, another young guy on the team. And that's the fact that, you see Sean Walker setting up the Nick Dowd and, getting into a little bit of an altercation with him after Freddie gets in. Freddie, this is the second time he's got into a fracas, after certain instances. And that's just the one thing with the Hurricanes is you're seeing that this is a team that's not going to take BS from anyone, and they're going to stand up for each other. Where you see other teams where, a captain gets knocked down and nothing happens for a good 20 minutes in a 20 minutes of game action and nothing happens, and it's just like a dumb penalty at that point. The Hurricanes are actually going to stand up for their guys. So, yeah, despite losing 4-1, you're seeing a team that's sticking up for each other. And that there's a sense of this mentality on this Hurricanes team this year, whereas the standard is set a lot higher and everyone's pulling on the same rope, but it's like, we're not taking BS. Like, either you're on the train or you're off, and we're going to make this work. And that's why you see where they're at 11-5. Yeah, you have all these injuries to your defense, but they're finding ways to win games. Yeah, your 4-game winning streak got snapped, but there is that sense that this team will not let adversity kind of take over or, put them, like, oh, well, what can we do? We're without our regulars. We're still without Jacob Slavin. Now we're without Jalen Chatfield. We just got, Shane Gostisbehere back. We're still trying to figure, trying to figure out the chemistry of the defense and stuff like that. But no, they're still winning games. And, Nikolai Ehlers has been heating up. Now he's on a 5-game point streak. He's gotten 3 goals over those 5 games. The guy that you wanted at Nikolai Ehlers, while he was getting assists before the goal totals, he's been off to a really hot start over the last few games. And now he's become the guy that you really wanted. And he was working well with the Logan Stankoven and Jackson Blake on that second line before the lines got kind of shuffled against Washington. But he's been playing well with them. The power play, didn't score, but they've scored 2 goals before then. So you're seeing this. It's this chemistry. It's this way this team is playing together right now that's kind of maybe you feel like there's a little bit different where, yeah, there's teams in the past that were deep and, on paper look like really good teams, but you feel like with this team, there's a little something different. There's a little something in the chemistry, a little something different in the mojo with the Hurricanes. And I feel like, yeah, despite a loss, it stinks. All streaks have to come to an end eventually, but that means, you just start a new one this weekend when you get the back-to-back with Vancouver and Edmonton. But I think you're still in a good spot overall if you're the Carolina Hurricanes. You're 11-5, which we'll talk about in segment 2. But it's just one of those things where, hey, these type of games happen. These two teams don't like each other, evidently, for sure. You got 2 more matchups, and just go take the next 2 and move on with it. You're still 11-5 on the season. You're still within striking distance of the division lead with the New Jersey Devils. It's 16 games into the season. We still have a long way to go. But you feel like with this Hurricanes team, there's a little bit something different. I feel like, this is a team where, despite the power play struggling, I think, once it gets rolling, if the team keeps continuing what they do, I think the Hurricanes are going to be in a legitimate shot to maybe have a deep playoff run once again, with the rush. And some people kind of thought, okay, what are they going to do? And right now they are clicking for the most part in all cylinders. It's just, a couple small tweaks. I think we're going to be seeing a fully charged Hurricanes team. And once everyone's back, Chatfield, Slave, and all of them, this could be a Hurricanes team that could be taking some long streaks in the win column for sure. Now, all that to be said, what has really been surprising for the Hurricanes with the fact with all the injuries of playing all these games in the last few days is that they're still continuing to win and still do their thing. So we'll talk more about that here in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. When I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, energy, mood, even my skin. That's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's the doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. Drip Drop isn't your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science-backed formula tested by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college teams and pro teams. And the thing, too, is they even have 0 sugar flavors as well, which I really enjoy. I like using Drip Drop as part of my daily routine. I mix a packet in the morning before the gym or even, during a midday slump. I know going to the gym, I don't go a lot, but it's nice when I do go. It helps out in that instance. And honestly, it tastes amazing. My go-to flavor right now is the watermelon or the peach. Even passion fruit's actually really good too. And it becomes my secret weapon for staying sharp and energized through long days. Hydration has become a non-negotiable for me. Drip Drop helps me feel sharper, calmer, and honestly, just better overall. So right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard, or, if it does get cold outside, you can always use a little boost dealing with that too. And keep your body and mind performing at their best with Drip Drop. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So the Carolina Hurricanes have been kind of going through a lot of adversity. We know all the injuries, and you do get Shane Gostisbehere back. You've got DeAndre Miller back recently, too, against Minnesota. Unfortunately, this Charles Alexis Lagod to get his hand cut against the Maple Leafs. Slavin's been still out since after the Flyers game. But the thing, too, is you're talking about a team that's played 4 games in the last 6 days. And it includes a back-to-back against Buffalo and Toronto. I know a lot of people are like, no team's going to feel bad for you. The schedule continues on. And it's true. No team's going to feel bad for you. It's the NHL. It is what it is. Everyone's got condensed schedules because of the Olympics. There's going to be a lot of games. They're playing a bunch of games in a short time span. And it's not really slowing down for the Carolina Hurricanes because they have a back-to-back at home against the Canucks on Friday and Edmonton on Saturday. And then after that, you might have a day off. Then you get to play Boston, Minnesota, and then Winnipeg all next week. So you have 3 games next week after a back-to-back this weekend. So there's really no off days. And even then, you play Buffalo on the 23rd. So you have a game every other day starting from next Monday up through next Sunday, the 23rd. Then you have 2 days off. But right now, the Hurricanes are in the middle of a 7-game, 11-day stretch. And that's still, like I said, not even including the next 4 games on the road after that. Boston, Minnesota, Winnipeg, and Buffalo. So there's no real slowdown for the Carolina Hurricanes. So I do think that, all the injuries that are piling up, they're getting some guys back. And I think you're possibly seeing some fatigue hitting this team a little bit too. And Shane Willis said it, Mike, Maniscalco and Jim Tracy all said it on the broadcast. It's a lot of games in a certain number of days, but like the thing is, like, you got to fight through it. Every team's got to have to take those long stretches of they're playing a bunch of hockey because, like I said, you got the Olympics coming up, and they've condensed a lot of these schedules. They've kind of packed them pretty tight. You don't get those super long, maybe a week or 2 stretches. You're talking almost 3 weeks for the Olympics where there's no hockey, at least for the NHL wise, at least. And now there's a long stretch of time in between then, and you're going to have to condense a lot of the schedules. So it's just fighting through fatigue, fighting through the fact that you get all these games a certain number of days, and it's just the schedule doesn't stop for a team that's tired or injured or stuff like that. So, you're getting some guys back, but this is where you have to dig deep into your depth, or you have to dig deep into your conditioning staying sharp and stuff like that. And the Hurricanes are a strong team. When it comes to cardio, when it comes to fitness, this team is going to be at that high level because you got Rod Brindamore, you got strength and conditioning. It's just Bill Bernstein, and you got the health guys from Doug Bennett and all them keeping these guys sharp. So the Hurricanes are in a good spot when it comes to trying to stay sharp and healthy and being physically fit and all that as much as they can. But yeah, I mean, everyone's human and you're going to get tired. But I think the fact that they're still fighting through a lot of the adversities of injuries, so many games in so many days. But the thing too is they're 11-5 on the season. The Hurricanes are still in a good spot overall when it comes to where they're at. And in terms of just being a team that's still on their way to doing what they need to do to fight for a Metro Division. Because right now, division-wise, they're only 1 point back of the New Jersey Devils, who are 11-4-1. The Hurricanes are 11-5. New Jersey lost in overtime. The Hurricanes lost in regulation. But the thing is, the Hurricanes are 5-2 at home. They're 6-3 on the road. They're 6-4 in their last 10. But here's the thing, too, is they have a goal differential of +14. New Jersey's a +7. And the Hurricanes are still one of New Jersey's 4 losses in regulation. And the thing, too, is they're still only a point over Pittsburgh for the third spot, and they're 4 points over Philadelphia with the game in hand. So even if Philadelphia wins their next game, the Hurricanes are still at least 2 points ahead of Philadelphia. So right now, while some of the teams like Philadelphia, the Islanders, and stuff like that maybe have played the same number of games or have a game in hand, especially against Pittsburgh 17, right now it's Pittsburgh, Carolina, and New Jersey in the top 3. Now, the first 2 make sense to what we all thought was going to happen. Pittsburgh, though, that is definitely a surprise. I had them 8th. A lot of people didn't pick them this high because it was a team that everyone thought was going to sell this season. But they're still 3 points ahead of Philly, the Islanders, and the Rangers. And the thing, too, is the entire division's over 500. Even the 8th place Jackets are 8-7-1, tied with the Washington Capitals. So they're still – the Metro Division is not the mid-division, as a lot of people likes to call them. So for where the Hurricanes are at, even with playing 4 games in 6 days, with all the injuries, they're still in a spot where you're 1 point out of the division lead with New Jersey. You have a game in hand on Pittsburgh, so you can push that even farther. And here's the thing, too. The Hurricanes are tied with Montreal and Boston for second in the Eastern Conference. They're ahead of those 2 teams, but there's, like I said, there's still New Jersey is the number 1 team in the East right now. Carolina is second. That tells you with how much the Hurricanes have had to deal with, they're still second in the Eastern Conference. And that's why for me it's putting them in such a better spot overall when you look, okay, what is possible for this team? Because even if you look at the wild card, you're looking at Tampa and Philadelphia in the 1-2 spots, and the Islanders, Red Wings, and Rangers are all tied, but on the outside looking in because of they've played more games than Philadelphia and Tampa, but that's still a thing, though. And then if you're looking at the entire NHL, you got Colorado's got 27 points. You got the Ducks, New Jersey, Dallas. The Hurricanes are right now the 5th team in the entire league in points. Like I said, and this is them doing without a full roster. This is them doing it with a 4-game winning streak that unfortunately got snapped, but you're doing it in a 4 games in 6-day run. You're in the middle of a 7-game, 11-day run as well. So the Hurricanes have done a lot to put themselves in a good spot where, you're dealing with a lot of this adversity. You're playing a lot of games, but you're still playing above where a lot of people thought you were going to be with the injuries of not having Slavin, not having Sheffield, not having Ghost twice, not having Miller for about 5 or 6 games. Having to dig deep into now your 12th defenseman that's been called up is Gavin Bayreuther. You've had to do this without Peter Gachekov for a part of the season, and Brandon Bussey is 4-1 on the season. Like, the Hurricanes have done a lot. I think that with all this going on, 11-5, second in the East, 5th in the league, the Hurricanes are in a good spot. And I think that one loss, it stinks. You don't want to lose to a divisional opponent like Washington because there's a lot of bad blood between these teams. But the Hurricanes are right now, for me, are in a good spot. So it's just moving on and seeing what happens next after this. But before we move on to the weekend games against Vancouver and Edmonton, what did Logan Stankoven say after the game on Tuesday against the Capitals? We'll stick around and we'll talk about it here in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Before we move on to the games later this week, what did Logan Stankoven say following the loss against the Capitals? Well, we'll listen to that right now and react to that here in a second.
Logan, obviously a tough way to end this one here tonight. What did you see out there through 60 minutes?
I think just too many turnovers, and we kind of let them dictate the play. So it didn't work out well on our end, and it showed in the end.
It seemed like the neutral zone was a tough go for you guys getting through. What did Washington do to make it so difficult there?
Just I think they did a good job of reloading, and I found like whenever I kind of had my head up to make a play or try and receive a puck, they had a lot of guys above, and they did a good job of kind of shutting down our neutral zone play and creating speed.
Logan, this is a team that you guys are really familiar with. Does the intensity seem to rise every single time you guys play each other? It always seems like it's a tense matchup, whether it's in the playoffs or regular season.
Yeah, I think just when you play a team so many times, there's rivalries that come up, and not sure if you can call this a rivalry or not, but there's lots of physicality. It's big boy hockey out there, so I enjoy playing that type of hockey, and it's what we got to expect, at the end of the season.
Clearly seems to bring quite a bit out of you when you play these guys. I don't think you've had a fight professionally, have you?
No, I've never had a fight in my life, but I don't know. I think things change over time, and I think people change, and I think when you see a teammate down like that, and they try and push us around, and I'm not going to stand for that. So just tried to jump in there, and next gloves are off, and I thought it was a great fight. So
acquitted yourself pretty well too, I think.
Yeah.
Did you feel like it?
Yeah, you don't really feel much in the moment. You're just kind of swinging away. So, I got cut a little bit, but it doesn't hurt, so it's good news.
The highlight reel favors you.
Pardon me?
The highlight reel favors you.
The highlight reel?
Yeah,
like
the fight.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I mean, I honestly enjoyed it. So I don't know if I should do it again or not, but sometimes you got to step up for teammates and stand your ground.
Did you really enjoy it?
I actually did. Yeah.
I feel like you've been waiting for this moment.
No, I mean, you never know when it's going to happen, but like I said, you got to jump in sometimes, and being a smaller guy, you can't be afraid of getting in there and getting your hands dirty sometimes. So
At least went down like half a weight class this time from going after Wilson.
Yeah, I don't think that would end too well, but at least I picked a guy that I could go toe-to-toe with.
Big thing to look at Stankoven and the Carolina Hurricanes. And hey, it's great to hear, just, laughing about the moment from him, talking about the fact that he fight Martin Ferravari and, maybe it was a different weight class than Tom Wilson. But even then, I think Stankoven would have held his own against Wilson regardless. But yeah, it's like I said, talking earlier, it's that, stick in for your teammate. And that's what he did. You see, Nick Dow goes after, he hits Frederick Anderson, and then, you're kind of worrying about that. Then you see Martin Ferravari act like he wants to try to go with Jackson Blake and try to rip his helmet off and ragdoll him around a little bit. And, Logan Stankoven's like, that's not going to happen. So it's good, like I said, it's good to see that these guys are sticking up for each other, rather if it's they're hitting the goalie or you're hitting your teammate late or even just trying to go after someone when that was like not even the main component of what was going on. So it's good to see Logan, step in. The guys were absolutely loving on the bench. They were, losing their minds, screaming, like way to go and all that stuff. So it's good to see the fact that, even with that, he he thought he loved the fight. He enjoyed it. He thought it was fun. And the fact it was his first fight, he stood on his own for his first fight, ever. He said so. And like Tripp said, some of the Western Canadians guys, man, they're always the toughest ones to play up against. So it's good to see this team sticking up for each other, and it's. I think this is going to be one of the big beneficial things of the fact this might be a little bit different for the Hurricanes, hopefully in the playoffs, is that they're not going to let teams push them around. They're not going to let them be physical, not do anything about it. It's like, yeah, if you're going to have to take those moments to make people answer the bell and find a way to let teams know, hey, you're not going to just come and just, throw your shots and nothing's going to happen. We're just going to turn away. It's like, no, you might have to answer for it now. And I think that's what the Hurricanes have really needed, is that we're not taking any BS. You're going to have that vinegar in you. You're going to have that, if you want to go down that path, we have no problem going down it as well. And, at least fighting you guys. Not going to throw cheap shots, but going to find ways to, make you answer some bells and, have to drop the gloves some. I think is what the Hurricanes definitely need. But it's just good to hear from the fact that, even after all that, with, the height of it, the differential and just finding a way to get the job done, Logan Stankoven did. And now you just kind of move on from there and hopefully get back in the win column and, kind of look at this game and be like, it's one of those games. You lost to the Capitals, but you go take the next couple, win the season series, you move on from there. But, overall, like I said, the Hurricanes are still 11-5, second in the East, second in the division, fifth in the NHL. It's all you can really ask out of this team right now that's dealing with injuries. 7 games in 11 days. It is what it is, but overall, can't be mad about it. The gas had to run out eventually for these guys. They're going to get tired. Everyone's human. It's just, how do you react to that is the next thing. What is your reaction? Are you going to step up the next game, or are you just going to let it roll over into the next one? And with this Hurricanes team, they're not a team that's just going to roll over and let something like this happen. So I think, you got Vancouver on Friday. You got Edmonton on Saturday. I think this is where the Hurricanes are just going to hit that next stride and continue on doing what they're doing. It's just one of those things where, hey, you got to step up. You got to get off the mat and go and get some more wins and move on from there. So am I worried? No. Is this a, thing to be, is this going to spiral into anything? No. The Hurricanes have been fighting through a lot of adversities. They're still winning games. Like I said, if you're fifth in the whole NHL with a depleted blue line, guys coming back in and out of the lineup, maybe some guys are on streaks, some guys are on streaks. Guys are figuring it out, and it's just the adversities of a season. And that's just how it is in the NHL. But the Hurricanes have been finding a way to get it done. They're still going to get it done. So, it's one game. It is what it is. Now it's just moving on to the next one and getting back in the win column and doing what you need to do to start winning some games again and kind of distancing yourself, from the wild card teams and, start looking for that divisional win. But, it's a long season. Anything can happen, but I think for the Hurricanes, they're in a good spot. But guys, that will do it for the Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On NHL Game Night show. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. If you want to keep up with me, I'm one true Zach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. Also, Blue Sky at thehockeywriters.com. I'm putting on a lot of stuff recently. Previews, recaps, talking about how Kendra Miller and Nikolai Ehlers have been really showing why the Carolina Hurricanes signed them this offseason. Go check all of that at thehockeywriters.com. If you want to check out my other podcasts, it's the Surge Cast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For Locked On Hurricanes, we're on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumbs up so let me know if you like the show as well. Share with other Caniacs to become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy your Wednesday. And until next time, as always, let's go Kings.